Hey there, in this video we take just an overview of the tools in the toolbar. Again, we're just doing some introductory stuff. So I'm going to open up one of these pictures we had open before. And so again, we're going to go through these really quickly now, just so you can kind of see what's going on, and then later on throughout the class, we're going to go into each one of these in excruciating detail. So the first one is this is called the rectangular marquee, or you might notice a selection tool. And I'm just going to select a portion of this image. And actually, you know what? I need to unlock this image. It's locked. I can't do anything with it. Okay, so this is the marquee tool. You know, if we hold the cursor over there long enough, it tells it what it is. But what it does is does selection. So I can do something like cut that part out now. And now it's gone. And now I can paste it in. So it's for doing things like doing things to just a portion of a layer, just a portion of an image. So if I want to cut a portion of it, you notice now I've got this new layer. When I paste that thing back in, I can do this. So when I do selection, I might want to, again, cut or copy a portion of it. Or we can come back here. I'm going to go back to this layer, and I can do a selection. And again, this might be mysterious to you how this is working, but I'm on this layer, and I can apply a filter. And it's going to only apply it to that particular section of the image. So for selecting. So that's the rectangular marquee, and then if we right click on that, we see where there's also an elliptical marquee or single row or single column marquee that you can use. Then there's a whole bunch of other selection tools here. These are ones for more freehand drawings. There's a lasso tool that I can use to freehand draw my selection. And once you have a selection on here, we call this the marching ants. Everything inside the selection is now, or inside the marching ants is now selected. And again, I can grab that and move it, do what I want to with it. So that's the lasso tool. It's totally freehand. There's a polygonal lasso, which does straight line segments. Again, so we finish this. Oops. And I can just double click to finish that. So it's like the lasso, except it's straight lines, and then there's a magnetic lasso, and that goes by areas of contrast. So if you notice, if I drag it around this piece that I have here, it's trying to just lay it on here for me. Excuse me. And I don't have to draw it by hand. Okay, so those are selection tools. And this tool, I actually grabbed this once, but this is called the move tool. So I want to move things around on a layer. I can grab that and move things that are selected independently. Then this is the magic wand, and magic wand is kind of, well, it is a selection tool, but it does the selecting by color rather than by us drawing the shape. So you notice I just clicked on this red thing and it grabbed everything that was red in there. And we'll come back and look, because this is a handy tool sometimes. So that's the magic wand. Then this is the crop tool, and the crop tool is used for cropping an image. And let's see, let's close this one and start a brand new one. So cropping, I'm going to just open that same picture again. Cropping is when we say I want to just have a section of a picture. So I can do this, and I can then resize after I have the crop tool on there. But as soon as I hit enter, it crops it down, so it trims out everything on the other side, on the outside of it. Underneath the crop tool, there's a slice tool and slice select tool. This is for more, it's kind of an old thing for the web. If I want to break my picture up into pieces, now I have these different slices I can work with. Then this is the eyedropper tool, and the eyedropper is for selecting. So if I ever want to select things by color, let's look at this portion down here before we look at the eyedropper. So this is telling me I have two colors here. This is my foreground color, and then this is my background color. And I can automatically switch those to black and white by clicking on this. I can switch them back and forth by doing this, switch foreground and background. Or if I want to change the colors, I have a couple of choices. I can double click here, and then that pulls up this palette. And if I want a shade of blue, I can click that and then choose the exact shade of blue and then say OK. And now blue is my foreground color. So if I paint, do anything like that, it's going to be painted in the foreground color. So another way I can choose colors, though, is by using this eyedropper tool. And the eyedropper, when I select that, if I pull it over here and let's put it on the shade of white over here. Let's see if I can get some brown out of her eye. You notice it's changing. I select a color over here as I click here. So I get this red. I get this blue. So if I ever want to match colors out of a picture, kind of get the whatever this flesh tone is, I can try to get it with this eyedropper tool. The problem with the eyedropper is it takes whatever pixel is directly underneath the cursor at the time you do it, and so we're actually looking at this picture at 50%. Here's 100%. And so you notice I got a lot of different shades of this beige on this dog right here. Okay, so that's the eyedropper. And underneath this, there's also a color sampler, which we'll get to later, but we can sample a bunch of colors and kind of keep track of them. There's a ruler for measuring. There's notes for leaving notes. And I'm not sure what this count tool does. We can figure that out later if we need to. Let's see, I'm going to put this back on crop. Then these tools, I'm not going to go through these, but spot healing brush patch, and red eye tool. These are for fixing cracks and fixing images. If you take the second quarter of this class, we'll get into these guys. Let's look at this one next. This is my paintbrush, pencil, and then color replacement and mixer brush tool. But let's look at the brush and the pencil for right now. We've already done a little bit of brushing, but that's if I want to just paint by hand on here. I can use this. And then the pencil is really the same thing as the paintbrush. It's just a finer line, kind of like a pencil line. Okay, and then let's look at this clone stamp. Clone stamp is where I can stamp a pattern. So if I wanted to try to get some of her fur texture back in this area, it's a two-step tool. So I click and get what we call the target, or source, I'm sorry, and then we paint that into the target. So again, we'll get into that, but this clone stamp, pattern stamp, we'll get to those. This is the, there's a history brush and art history brush. Art history brush I hardly ever use. History brush, though, this is something that's really valuable. It allows us to paint back to what was initially here in our picture. So if I go into history and I go back to this, I'm sorry, I set my history brush to this. I go down here to this state on the clone stamp. I can now, with this history brush, I should be able to paint. Oh, I changed size of the canvas. It won't work. Let's see. Let me undo a few steps here. Oh, you know what? I can't do it. But I could paint back in with this history brush. It's a cool one. We'll go over it in detail. This is the eraser. Allows us to erase things out of here. And what it puts in here is the background color. Then there's the background eraser. And this one tries to take things... I'm sorry, it takes it back to the background rather than the background color. It takes it all the way through all the layers. And then this one, the magic eraser, this one's kind of cool. This one, it's kind of like a combination of the magic wand and the eraser in one. So I click on here, you notice it's getting all these shades of brown that are kind of the same. So this is kind of a nice tool for cropping things out or getting just a piece of it. Then this is the gradient or paint bucket tool. The gradient tool we will use, it's for drawing gradients. So by itself, it's not that great unless you want a gradient, but we'll see combined with a couple other tools it does some really fantastic stuff. And same thing, paint bucket, it dumps in whatever the current foreground color is into these different shapes. So that one, if you want to fill with a color, that one's pretty good. Then this is the blur, smudge, and sharpen tool. These again are from the old days of photo retouching, but I can blur. I don't know if you can see I'm blurring this line across here. It's like smearing my finger across it. And then sharpen is the opposite of smudging. So what it does is increase area of contrast and makes edges sharper. And then the blur is the opposite of that. Okay. And then this is dodge tool, burn tool. And again, these are from the old picture thing. But you notice dodge, what it does is brightens. And this is just what they call it, but we're brightening it. It's like for exposure things, I'm overexposing it. Burn does the opposite, makes things darker. And if we put it on here too long, it looks like it's actually burned. And then sponge is for desaturation. It's going to suck color out. So it's like if I had a sponge and I was clicking on here, I'm not seeing much result out of this, but we do this enough times, it'll start sucking the color out of it and just leaving it black and white. Okay, then this is a pen tool. These are all for drawing paths. We're going to go over these. This stuff, I hated this until I learned how to use it, and then this is really a tool I use all the time, both for drawing shapes and for doing paths. So, and then these tools are also related to the path tool. This one is the text tool for drawing text, And there's a couple different types of text. We can do horizontal, vertical, or we can make a mask, and we'll look at that stuff. Then this one is the shape tool, and this one's another one where it's got a whole bunch underneath here. But if I want to draw a rectangle or a round rectangle with round corners, circles, polygons, lines, or custom shapes, and the shapes will get into this, but there's all kinds of shapes we can draw. So this is a pretty powerful tool. These guys, I don't know what these do. So this is new in CS5, and I haven't done any of this, but I guess we can do some 3D stuff in here. Some more 3D stuff. This is the hand tool and the rotate tool, but the hand tool is used for moving things around. But it moves everything, you notice, as opposed to the move tool. And then this is the magnifying glass. You can use this to zoom in. You can click to zoom in, or I can alt-click to zoom out. So I can zoom in on sections or zoom out. And then this we looked at was the color palette. And this is something called the quick mask or normal mode, and we'll look at that. We'll do some really cool stuff with this. But anyway, that's an overview of the toolbar. The things you might want to know now is like how to do the paintbrush, how to do the eraser, and maybe do some basic selection and moving. But like I said, we will go back to every one of these and go through them in excruciating detail. So don't worry about picking any of that stuff up right now.